Chapter 6. There was a stillness in heaven that had never been before. It was not the stillness of peace, nor the reverent hush of worship before the throne. It was a weight, soft but undeniable, like the air itself had grown heavier since the war. The gates of heaven stood sealed, and though the light of the throne shone with unshaken brilliance, something lingered in the hearts of those who remained. Loss. Not a loss of faith, not a loss of devotion. The kingdom was unchallenged, the throne eternal. And yet, heaven was no longer whole. Where once every voice sang in perfect harmony, now there were echoes of absence woven into their melodies. Where once there was laughter among the host, now there were moments of quiet, as though some unspoken sorrow had settled into the very foundation of eternity. Even the golden streets, once so radiant, seemed gentler now, like the glow of a candle instead of the blaze of a star. The river of life still flowed, but its song was different. It carried a note of mourning, a melody that whispered of what had been lost. And yet, beyond the sorrow, expectation, a whisper passed through the angelic host. The Father had spoken to the Son in the courts of eternity. The Spirit had moved with a quiet, steady purpose, a presence hovering between realms unseen. And then, they had gone. The Godhead had departed, not in absence, not in abandonment, but in intention. The throne remained radiant, the great rainbow still encircled it in undying hues, and yet the presence of the Father, Son, and Spirit had shifted, not away from heaven, but toward something else, something waiting, something about to be. And in the space between grief and hope, between loss and fulfillment, heaven turned its gaze toward the vastness of the void. Gabriel stood at the threshold of eternity, where the radiant light of the throne room faded into an untouched expanse, a nothingness so deep it seemed endless. Before him stretched the abyss, neither dark nor light, but something beyond definition, a canvas yet untouched, a silence yet unbroken. But he was there. Gabriel did not see him, no form, no figure, no great display of power, but he felt him, the Spirit, moving, breathing, waiting. A presence stirring over the endless void, shifting unseen currents in the deep like the whisper of a coming storm. The archangel's wings rustled as he beheld the unseen, his celestial form shimmering in the light that had not yet come. He had seen the birth of stars. He had watched galaxies spin into being, watched heaven itself take shape beneath the breath of the Almighty. But this was different. His heart, though eternal, beat faster. Then, a voice, not just any voice, the Word, the Son of God. The same voice that had called forth the heavens, the same voice that had sung the melodies of angelic life into being, the same voice that had stood against the morning star's rebellion. Now that voice spoke again. A single command, rippling through the abyss. Let there be light. And light was, not from a sun, not from fire, not from anything that had ever been. Light itself was born. It tore through the void like a river bursting its banks, racing outward in all directions. It was raw, untamed. It touched everything, stretched across eternity, chasing shadows into the deepest corners of the unknown. All of heaven paused. Gabriel's breath caught. The radiance was unlike anything he had ever seen, not the unchanging, holy brilliance of heaven, but something new, something alive, pulsing, woven into time. It did not burn. It did not blind. It revealed. From his place, Cassiel, the watcher of law and order, trembled at the divine symmetry of it all. His sapphire eyes reflected the newborn light, his 6 wings folding inward in reverence. His voice, barely above a whisper, carried the weight of a universe's first decree. Time. It has never been measured before. For eternity, Heaven had existed in a song without tempo, a radiance without shadow. But here, the Almighty had done something new. A boundary had been set. Light, darkness, one to reign over the other, marking the passage of something unseen before now. Time. It was the first division, the first law of a new world, a rhythm woven into the foundation of existence itself. And in that rhythm, there was purpose. Evening fell, morning rose, and thus, the first day was complete. Then the Word spoke again. His voice, a command woven with eternity, surged through the void like a river breaking through ancient gates. It rolled through the deep, through the breath of the Spirit who hovered, waiting. And at once, the waters obeyed. A great expanse stretched forth, vast, weightless, and endless. Not light nor land, but something between. A veil of separation, drawn by the hand of the Almighty. The waters below trembled as they were pulled downward, sinking into their appointed depths. Above, the waters lifted, not scattered, not lost, but held. Suspended in the unseen hands of the Creator, they formed a canopy over the void, shimmering, waiting. And then, the sky inhaled. For the first time, the air moved, not in the rustling of angelic wings, nor the reverberation of celestial voices, but with something entirely new. A breath, a whisper. Wind. Selaphiel, the warrior who had once fought in the Great War, stood unmoving. His copper-colored wings, so often fierce in battle, trembled as he beheld the wonder before him. It was not heaven, not yet the earth, but something between. A realm stretched and waiting, ready to cradle the world to come. His voice was scarcely more than a breath. This is mystery. Above him the expanse deepened, unfolding wider, vaster, stretching without end. There was no sun to rule it, no stars to adorn it, yet it was majestic, waiting. And as Selaphiel gazed into its boundless reach, he felt it. A presence in the wind, a song yet unsung, a promise, aching and beautiful, woven into the sky itself. Something was coming. Something only the Almighty could complete. Evening fell, morning rose, and thus the second day was complete. Then, a stir beneath the waters. At first, there was only the sea, endless, restless, unbroken. It stretched beyond sight, a vast and formless deep, waiting beneath the open sky. But it was not waiting alone. He was there. The Spirit hovered over the face of the waters, his presence rippling through the currents, whispering unseen commands to the restless abyss. The waters trembled, they knew. Something was about to change. Then, the Word. A voice, steady as eternity, rushed forth like a river breaking through ancient gates. And the waters obeyed. They fled in great, sweeping currents, rolling back in reverence, revealing what had been hidden beneath since the first dawn of existence. Land. Dry and untouched, stretching forth like something waking from a long sleep. Mountains surged skyward, piercing the newborn sky, their peaks crowned in mist. Valleys yawned, spreading their arms wide as if to embrace the coming life. Rivers traced new pathways, carving silver veins through the untouched earth, while lakes settled into their basins like molten mirrors, reflecting the heavens above. And then, color, not a flicker, not a whisper, but an eruption. Life burst from the soil. The first blades of grass broke free, stretching upward with trembling delight. Trees shook the earth as they unfolded from the dust, their roots diving deep into the land that had never known them. Leaves unfurled, trembling with the breath of the wind's first exhale. And then, the flowers. Like fireworks of fragrance and color, they blossomed in wild splendor. Petals of gold, crimson, violet, and sapphire unfolded with the softness of whispers, as if creation itself was singing in color. Raphael watched, his emerald wings trembling. He had seen the gardens of heaven, walked among their radiant vines, traced his fingers over celestial petals bathed in eternal light. But this was something else. This was not just beauty. This was a welcome. It was preparing not just to grow, but to receive. This land, these forests, these rivers, they were waiting. Soon the first footsteps would press into the soil. Soon, voices, new voices, different voices, would laugh, sing, breathe. And the earth was ready for them. Raphael exhaled, a slow smile touching his lips. For the first time since the war, he felt it. Joy. As the earth settled beneath the sky, as rivers found their courses and forests whispered in the wind's first breath, there was yet something missing. The land was rich, full, vibrant, but incomplete. Above, the heavens stretched wide, vast and waiting. The soil had been clothed, the waters set free, but the sky remained bare, an expanse without its rulers, a canvas without its lights. The world was awakening, but soon the night would be given its watchman, and the day its crown. Evening fell, morning rose, and thus the third day was complete. Cassiel had seen them before. The celestial bodies, spun into existence when the heavens were made, woven into the fabric of eternity, like silent witnesses to divine majesty. But now, their purpose was revealed. The word called them forth, and the sky burned with new fire. A golden sun ignited, rising with sovereign command, its radiance draping the newborn earth in warmth and brilliance. It took its throne in the sky, a beacon of time, ruling the day with unwavering authority. Opposite, a silver sentinel emerged, the moon, quiet and watchful, reflecting the light of the greater glory. Then, the stars. They did not merely appear. They were placed, scattered by the very hand of the Almighty across the vast and infinite canvas. They shimmered in a celestial choir, their patterns forming mysteries yet to be understood, a map of time itself, a promise written in fire. Cassiel trembled. For all his existence, he had been the watcher of laws, the keeper of divine order. He had seen the decree of heaven govern angelic ranks, had felt the weight of justice spoken into being. But this was different. He watched as the Spirit moved among the stars, setting them in motion. The heavens became a living clock, a symphony of light measuring days, seasons, and years, its rhythm precise, unyielding. A great cosmic timepiece had been forged. Cassiel exhaled, his 6 wings folding inward. His sapphire gaze reflected the burning constellations above. Time, not a force imposed, not a burden, but a gift, woven into creation, a rhythm to guide, to sustain, to reveal. Gabriel stood beside him in quiet awe, his golden wings illuminated by the fire of the heavens. He had witnessed the birth of light itself, had seen stars flare into being when the Almighty first spoke them forth. But never like this. Now, they were anchors, set in place not just to exist, but to guide, to reveal, to proclaim. They are more than light, Gabriel said, his voice reverent. They are signs. Cassiel turned to him, and for the first time since the rebellion, something stirred within him. A certainty, a deep knowing, as if the very fabric of time whispered to his soul. Yes, they were signs. Not only to govern creation, not only to separate day from night, but to speak, to declare, to foretell. Cassiel felt the weight of it, as if the very fabric of time whispered of something yet to come, something beyond the reach of even the most radiant stars. A foreshadowing of glory, a whisper of redemption. The stars burned on, far beyond the present moment, far beyond even the earth's first days. Heaven's great clock had begun to turn, and one day, The sky itself would proclaim the coming of the King. Evening fell, morning rose, and thus the fourth day was complete. Then the waters beneath them stirred, not with mere movement, but with anticipation. Then, laughter. Not the laughter of angels. Not the resounding harmonies of heaven, but something else. Something new. The word called forth, and the deep erupted with life. A great exhale, a rush, a bursting forth. From the lakes and streams, the rivers and seas they came, sleek bodies slicing through the currents, tails flashing, fins cutting silver trails through the water. Fish leapt, schools of them, tiny flashes of gold and sapphire, darting in endless spirals, their bodies reflecting the new sun's light. Whales, vast and ancient, rolled through the deep. Their voices, low, resonant, vibrating through the water, were the first songs of the sea. Their massive tails sent waves crashing against the shore, stirring the waters into motion, as if the ocean itself had begun to breathe. And still, more came. Creatures of wonder. Some with scales glistening like living gemstones, some long and serpentine, weaving through the depths, others massive and unyielding, like moving fortresses, and above dash, wings. They burst forth from the earth in a flurry of color, sparks of fire, flashes of white, streaks of emerald and crimson. Birds, some soared, carried effortlessly by the unseen breath of the sky. Some darted, fast, precise, flitting between the unseen threads of the wind like masterful dancers. And their voices, oh, their voices. They filled the heavens, weaving into a great symphony, their songs rising into the morning air. Some whistled high, pure notes like the delicate chime of unseen bells. Others trumpeted in bold declaration, as if proclaiming their joy to the world. The sky had been waiting for them, and now, at last, they filled its vastness, their wings painting motion across the heavens. Selaphiel laughed. He did not mean to, but the sound escaped him. A rich, unburdened thing, rising with the birds, dancing with the wind. Gabriel turned toward him, surprise flickering in his golden gaze. Selaphiel only shook his head, breathless. He lifted his face to the sky, wings unfurling in full. For the first time since the war, since the sorrow of loss had settled into heaven's halls, he felt something lift. It was light. It was wonder. It was joy. "Look at them," he marveled, his voice hushed, as though speaking too loudly might shatter the moment. They do not toil. They do not doubt. They do not fear." Gabriel smiled. "They only live." Selaphiel exhaled, watching a flock of white birds spiral upward, their wings aglow against the sun. "Yes," he whispered, "they only live." There was something in their movement, something in their unburdened delight that healed something within him. "There is no battle here," Selaphiel murmured, watching the birds weave through the sky. "No conflict, no war." Gabriel nodded. "Only life." Selaphiel exhaled, his copper wings trembling as he followed the flight of a flock spiraling upward, their wings aglow against the sun. "Yes," he whispered, "only life." The weight of war had settled into his being, a shadow cast by the rebellion, a burden he had never known before that day. But this was not war. This was something else, something free. And in that moment, with wings spread, with the cries of birds above and the songs of whales below, Selaphiel laughed again. Evening fell, morning rose, and thus the fifth day was complete. Then they gathered at the edge of eternity, watching. Gabriel, Cassiel, Raphael, Selaphiel, 4 witnesses to the final preparation. The voice of the word called forth, and the ground trembled. The land, rich and full from the day before, now stirred as if waking from a long and patient slumber. A breath of wind swept across the valleys. The air thickened, not with mist, but with expectation. And then, life. The first sound was the low rumble of hooves against the earth, a deep vibration rolling through the soil. Then came the thunder of movement, limbs stretching, feet pounding, voices rising in a wild symphony. The creatures of the earth were born. From the lowlands the great beasts rose, the oxen, the bison, the mighty creatures that would walk as the pillars of the fields. The ground trembled beneath the steps of elephants, their massive ears catching the wind as their trumpets filled the air. From the hills came the deer and the gazelle, swift and delicate, their legs made for flight, their eyes filled with wonder at the world they had awakened into. The desert swirled, shifting with the scales of serpents and lizards, each one adorned in colors of the sun. The forests came alive with rustling branches as creatures with fur and claw, with paws and padded steps, emerged. Lions stretched in the golden light. Wolves lifted their heads and howled their first song. Gabriel exhaled, eyes alight with wonder. They move. They move with purpose. Cassiel, the watcher of laws, observed the order woven into their existence, each one unique, and yet none without place, none without reason. Yes, he murmured, they know where they belong. Raphael's emerald wings glowed as he smiled, watching the first lamb stumble toward its mother, bleating. And they care for one another, he marveled. Selaphiel, once a warrior, now stood breathless. This was not battle, this was peace. For a time, they watched. And yet, something was missing. A hush settled, a pause, woven into time itself. The word had not spoken again. The angels stirred, glancing at one another. Would there be more? Had the sixth day reached its fullness? Then, the presence of the Almighty withdrew. Not in absence, not in separation, but in intention. The light of the throne did not dim, but a veil of mystery fell between the angels and the Creator. Gabriel took a step forward, as if to follow, but something held him back. No command had come to them, no invitation to witness. This was not for them. They looked at one another, understanding dawning. The final act of creation would not be theirs to see. This was something private, something sacred, something only for the hands of the Godhead to shape. And so, he knelt alone. The Son of God, the Word, through whom all things had been made, lowered himself to the earth. His divine hands touched the dust. The same hands that had set the stars in place. The same hands that had shaped the rivers of heaven. Now they pressed into the soil. The earth was rich beneath his fingers, full of the life he had spoken into being. And yet this was different. This was not the effortless calling of light, not the commanding of waters, not the grand shaping of mountains with a single breath. No, this was personal. With infinite patience, he gathered the dust. It clung to his fingers, waiting, expectant. It did not yet pulse with life, did not yet carry the breath of heaven. But soon, the form began to take shape beneath his touch, shoulders broad, arms strong, hands designed to create, to build, to hold. A face crafted with care, with intention, the brow noble, the eyes waiting to open to see their maker, the mouth formed for speech, for laughter, for words yet unspoken, and the heart, silent for now, but ready to awaken, ready to live. The Son of God paused. This was the one who would bear his image. This was the one he had crafted not with a command, but with his hands. He did not simply create him, he formed him, and now it was time. The breath of the Almighty stirred. He leaned close, so close that if Adam had been awake, he would have felt it against his skin. Then he exhaled. The breath of life poured forth, rushing into the dust like a river into dry land. And the dust became flesh. Lifeless matter became a living soul. The chest of the man rose with its first inhale. His heart shuddered, then found its rhythm. His veins surged with life. And then, his eyes opened. For a moment, there was nothing but breath. The inhale of one newly awakened. Then, his gaze lifted, and he saw him. The first thing Adam ever beheld was the face of the Son of God. Not the sky, not the earth, not the vastness of creation. His first sight was the one who had formed him. The one who had breathed life into his lungs. The Word held his gaze. There was no fear in Adam's eyes, no confusion, only recognition. A soul seeing its maker, a son beholding his father. And the Son of God smiled, and Adam smiled back. He rose, the richness of life thrumming through his being. He was strong, taller, broader than any who would come after. His form, noble and perfect. His skin, warm with the glow of new creation. And as he stood, he beheld the world around him for the first time. It was beautiful. The fields stretched in endless green. The rivers wove their shimmering paths. The forests whispered with life. The creatures roamed freely. The birds soared high. The very sky above him curved in perfect light. It was his, a gift. And yet, something stirred in his heart, a whisper, a longing he did not yet understand. He looked among the creatures, the great and the small, the powerful and the gentle. Each had their pair, each had their other. But Adam was alone.